Hi, Aunt. Julia here, recording this September 25th, 2022. And just want to talk a little bit about embracing change and the unknown. Because really the only constant is change. And so many times we get into a predicament where we're very comfortable and familiar with our environment, even though it's probably not the most conducive to our best well-being emotionally, spiritually, vibrationally, and maybe even physically. That bird. But yeah, so we have to sometimes change it up, even though that's not a comfortable thing to do. And often change affects other people when we make changes in our life. So it's really something to think through and contemplate, but you have to stay on your path of growth. And if you're in a situation where you're stagnant or going back the other way, then it's time to do some evaluation of the situation and of yourself and see if that's really where you need to be for everybody's optimal well-being. Because often with relationships, if they're toxic and we stay in them just because they're familiar and comfortable, it's what we're used to, man, there's just no opportunity for growth there, and oftentimes we regress and de-evolve. And yeah, it's really about having that self-awareness and knowing that you're responsible for your life and taking that responsibility and doing something with it. So yeah, that's huge to be self-aware. And some people choose not to be aware because they don't want to go through that change in their personality by doing their shadow work or their emotional healing work. And yeah, I think that's why a lot of people don't embark on emotional healing work, is because they don't really want to change. Because the unknown, we fear the unknown. But that's how they get us, you know. That's how so many people are living in fear now. There's an interesting smell here. Excuse me, dogs. Because that's how they programmed us, to fear the unknown, including death. But death is inevitable, and it's the coolest thing that ever happens to us. And we'll all see that eventually. But yeah, when you can get to that point where you don't fear death, and you don't fear imprisonment or torture, then you're there. You have real freedom. Although, like Bill Hicks says, if you think you're free, try to go somewhere without money. But the truth is, you can do that. If you're a manifester, you don't need money. You'll manage your way through whatever you want, you'll manifest. And as long as you've done your emotional healing work, your shadow work, and again, if that's new to you, you can find an emotional healing playlist on this channel to get you started. But as long as you've done that work and cleared out all these negative, uncompromising, sabotaging judgments that you have in your subconscious and your unconscious, then you'll manifest like a boss all the time. You'll get exactly what you want. And that's when you have to start being very selective about your thoughts and where you go with them, and put in details when you're manifesting, because the simulacrum, the universe, source, whatever you want to call it, definitely has a sense of humor. So if you don't put in the details, you might get some funny outcomes. Definitely you might get some interesting ones you weren't expecting, which is cool too. Like I've mentioned before, I like to keep things kind of vague. I like the element of surprise. I like change. And I remember when I was splitting up with my ex after 18 years, I was 40, going on 41 years old, and it was a very overwhelming time, but there were moments when I just focused on, well, wow, my whole world's opened up now. I can do anything I want, you know? I have all these opportunities to go in all these directions. So, you know, and that was a really tough time, but there were those moments when I would come to that realization that, wow, so much opportunity in this situation, this new situation. And that's usually the case. There's usually tons of opportunity when we're forced into certain changes. And again, it goes back to perspective. As long as you have the proper perspective about it, then you'll find things that benefit you, and you'll always find the good in everything. Everything has both sides. So if you look for the good, you'll find it. If you look for the bad, you'll find it. And again, worrying just manifests what you're worrying about. So put that on the shelf. Figure out a way not to worry. When you find yourself starting to worry about something, instead turn it onto what you want to manifest, not what you're worried about happening. And then the other thing I was going to mention today was the phrase taking advantage of. Because sometimes that's a good thing, right? Oh, well, they invited me to the beach, so I took advantage of the invitation and I went to the beach. But then there's also, well, he wanted to loan me money, so I took advantage and I borrowed a bunch of money, and then I took more advantage and didn't pay it back. Or just taking advantage of a situation where you just take too much. So, yeah, there has to be that balance again with the give and take, as mentioned before. It has to be in balance. And again, takers are never satisfied. Never, ever, ever. And givers have to set those boundaries. And it's really hard for givers to do that because they'll put their foot down and be like, okay, I'm not going to let this happen anymore. But then their big heart gets in the way again and they give again. And I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing to be taken advantage of in that way, because you will always be provided with whatever you gave. If you need it, you will get it back, just because of the fact that you were giving. You're a giving person. And so again, it's that balance, you know. The source, the simulacrum, has its mechanisms for balance too. So if you're always giving, it's going to give back to you. But yeah, there is that whole boundaries thing. And taking advantage, you know, it's good to take advantage to a degree, but don't take an advantage to another person's disadvantage. So yeah, again, it all goes back to balance, doesn't it? Balance with everything. But yeah. So, thanks for listening, everyone. And I hope you have a good morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are. And remember to always focus on what you want. And always help others if you can. And I'll talk to you next time. Ciao, ciao.